From legendary doors in the heart of Louisiana, purported to hold powerful ties to the Voodoo faith, to quiet and creepy Quaker cemeteries where it's rumored fascinating historic markers might just allow communication with the other side. Are you ready to delve through 5 real American gateways to hell? Number 5. Waipi'o Valley. Waipi'o Valley, or the Valley of the Kings, located in the Hamakua district on the Big Island in Hawaii, is a region that derives its moniker from the river cutting through it, the Waipi'o, which actually translates to curved or winding waters. According to Hawaiian oral histories, at a time the valley held a populace of between 4,000 and 10,000, up until the arrival of Captain Cook in 1778, and even served as residents to a number of early Hawaiian alii, being chiefs or kings. Through the late 1800s, waves of Chinese immigrants would settle into the valley, and over time, entire communities sprouted up, boasting post offices, hotels, and even jails. Tragically, in 1946, a 7.4 magnitude earthquake hit just off the Alaskan coast, resulting in a devastating tsunami that destroyed much of the Hawaiian shoreline. And later, in 1979, the valley was flooded in over 4 feet of resting water. Today, all of about 50 residents live within the once flourishing basin, a populace primarily comprised of taro farmers, fishermen, and those leading quieter lifestyles. It remains a popular destination for surfers, hikers, and nature enthusiasts alike, offering a multitude of trails, landmark locations, breathtaking scenery, and a unique black sand beach. In Hawaiian culture, Waipi'o is a sacred place, and as such holds a number of important temples, markers, and even cliffside burial caves, which in turn hold the remains of past Hawaiian royalty. The doorway to Lua'omailu, or the land of the dead, ruled by Mailu, is said to sit at the mouth of the valley at a place called Kioni, where it's purported that sands long ago covered the entrance. Throughout the area, many report huakaipo, or night marchers, which are claimed to be the spirits of ancient Hawaiian warriors that roam the roads, blowing on conch shells and beating loud drums to announce their presence, and that usually conclude their journey by disappearing into the sands, into what we can only assume may be the long-buried entryway. Legend tells that it's important for the living to stay hidden when the marchers are out, as anyone who is caught by them will most surely suffer a fate worse than death, with those few who have been in close proximity to these beings describing glowing red eyes and the constant stench of decay. Number 4. Quaker Cemetery. Quaker Cemetery, also known as Friend Cemetery, but more commonly referred to as Spider's Gate, and located off the shallow dirt trail dubbed Earl Street, adjacent to Manville Street in Leicester, Massachusetts, is a privately owned graveyard that derives its strange moniker from the design in its wrought iron gates, which many claim resemble spider webs, though they were initially intended to be sun rays. As history has it, in 1732, a group of locals petitioned to organize their very own Quaker meeting. The petition was approved, and construction was started on a small wooden meeting house next to where the burying grounds now sit. The cemetery was founded in 1740 with its first interment, and the congregation would continue meeting on site until 1850, when a new communal meeting space was selected in Worcester. The cemetery's iconic granite posts and iron gates were installed in 1895 under request of Dr. Pliny Earle. Sadly, one of the original gates was stolen, though it has since been replaced with an exact replica, and foundation is all that remains of the original meeting house. Today, the yard is owned and operated by the Worcester Friends Meeting, who continues to accept burials into present times, and is open to the public during designated hours. Local legend tells paranormal activity at Quaker Cemetery is all but common and stems from the fact that the site acts as the 8th gateway to hell, with some claiming that any who step through the gates after dark will be automatically condemned in the afterlife. Interestingly enough, the grounds are closed after dark and heavily patrolled, and many who visit even during the daytime have reported disembodied voices, extreme cold spots, and shadowy figures that stalk lone walkers. The grave of Marmaduke Earl is surrounded by a patch of grass that is seemingly always dead. Tale tells that if you walk around this grave 10 times at midnight, exclaim "Marmaduke, speak to me," kneel down and place your ear on the headstone, you might just get a reply, though some accounts have been described as pretty disturbing. Lastly, orbs and full-bodied apparitions are common. A spectral little boy who's said to have hanged himself has been sighted in the trees, and several who have braved the graveyard after dark have reported being chased by something moving at inhuman speeds and emitting demonic growls. Number 3. Devil's Gate Dam. Devil's Gate Dam, located along the Arroyo Seco in northern Pasadena, California, is a flood control boasting the title of being the first dam of its type in Los Angeles County that takes its rather sinister moniker from a particularly insidious rock outcropping resembling the face of a horned beast. Historically, the Arroyo Seco, a 24.9-mile-long seasonal river, canyon, watershed, and cultural area, was first explored in 1770 by Spanish soldier Gaspar de Portola, and later, in 1834, 1,443 acres were gifted to Juan Marin in a Mexican land grant. Juan would pass on in 1838, and in 1843, Mexican Lieutenant Manuel Garfias would take ownership. In 1874, the Indiana colony was established, and before long, homesteads began sprouting up through the region. It was quickly apparent that seasonal flooding would be an issue in the area, and as communities in the county expanded, damages from flooding grew significantly, often hindering travel between Pasadena and Los Angeles entirely. As a result, in 1920, flood engineers from LA would set to work on a dam at Devil's Gate Gorge. Chillingly, through the 1940s, a group of cultists would become interested in the area and would conduct a series of rituals intended to open a doorway to hell. Disturbingly, it said these cultists were attempting to bring forth a moonchild or antichrist to destroy humanity. By 2011, the flood basin had been filled with debris from the earlier 2009 station fire, drastically reducing its effectiveness, and in 2019, removal efforts were launched. Stories of hauntings surrounding Devil's Gate are thought to be tied to native legend, which states the site is actually a gateway to the afterlife, and ancient accounts tell of strange laughing sounds described in likeness to those of the coyote spirit heard near the rapids. Following cult activity through the 40s, several local children went missing, most disappearing mysteriously and seemingly within seconds. While a serial killer later attempted to take credit for these disappearances, no bodies or evidence were ever found, and many still cling to theories of supernatural forces at work. Also reported near the dam are orbs visible to the naked eye, half-formed silhouettes in photographs, and the sensation of breath on visitors' necks. Lastly, reported from near Devil's Gate Rock Formation are disembodied voices, electronic malfunctions, and entities described as demonic in nature. Number 2. The Gates of Guinea. The Gates of Guinea in the Voodoo faith are 7 fabled entrances to the spirit world, all guarded by separate deities that can be passed through in order to reach one's ancestors in Guinea, or the afterlife. Practitioners of Voodoo believe these 7 gates are physically present here on Earth and possibly fall within New Orleans, Louisiana. Historically, Haitian voodoo was first developed between the 16th and 19th centuries and was comprised of religions from West Africa with Roman Catholic influences. The city of New Orleans was initially founded in 1718 as the capital of French Louisiana, with the area's development relying heavily on slave labor. Over time, religions from Haiti, South Africa, and various other countries were combined, and eventually Louisiana voodoo was born. After the start of the Haitian Revolution in 1791, life for voodoo practitioners would get much harder following rumors that instigators were empowered by a deity through a ritual, and colonists would attempt to suppress the culture entirely. New Orleans would grow as a tourist destination through the 1930s and 40s, and as Hollywood launched multiple fictions surrounding the ancient religion, true voodoo would begin moving underground. Though it may surprise, actual voodoo is practiced to this very day with frequency and through many communities, but due to an ongoing stigma and stereotypes is often kept in secrecy. Though exact locations of the gates of Guinea are either unknown or simply haven't been made public knowledge, legend tells that one, possibly even the first of these gates, might lie behind the tomb of Marie Laveau in St. Louis Cemetery No. 1, a second at Perseverance Hall, and a series of fables and rumors tell of symbols in streets or old artwork hinting towards or even marking additional gates. In lore, the gates must be opened in a specific order, and if they're approached incorrectly, it can result in unforeseen consequences, such as dangerous beings passing through, or even nearby living being sucked back into the land of the dead. As previously mentioned, each gate is said to be guarded by a loa, all tasked with keeping the living out. Each loa is said to have its own likes and dislikes and must be appeased in the correct way before passage is allowed. The first gate is said to belong to Baron Lacroix, the second to Guédé Nebo, the third to Guédé Plumage, the fourth to Baron Cimetière, the fifth to Guédé Babaco, the sixth to Baron Criminel, and the seventh to the infamous Baron Samedi. Legend furthers to state that the sites are most active around the holidays, especially near Christmas, New Year's, All Saints' Day, and All Souls' Day. And though the task of appeasing a dangerous deity may sound daunting, it's said that if utilized correctly, the gates can grant the living access to the spirit world, contact with the dead, and unimaginable opportunity. Number 1. Bobby Mackey's. Bobby Mackey's, located at 44 Licking Pike in Wilder, Kentucky, is a former slaughterhouse turned nightclub and honky-tonk that, alongside its popular music and social events, is widely recognized for its range of purported paranormal activity. Historically, a large slaughterhouse and meatpacking facility was constructed on site in 1850, with a well dug out in the heart of the building to hold blood, guts, and waste from slaughtered animals. In the 1890s, the slaughterhouse was closed down, and legend tells satanic cults inhabited the space for a time. Over the years, evidence of occult practices, rituals, and even sacrifices surfaced, and eventually, in 1896, 22-year-old Pearl Bryan, who was with child, was discovered decapitated in a field a few miles out. Chillingly, her head was never recovered, but Scott Jackson, Pearl's boyfriend and the accused murderer, is said to have had close ties to the cult. The original slaughterhouse was demolished through the early 20th century, and in the 1920s, a new building was designed in its stead, one which would act as a casino, nightclub, and eventually a speakeasy through Prohibition. In 1933, one E.A. Buck Brady would purchase the property, operating it as a casino called the Primrose. When Brady's business began to flourish, the Cincinnati mob attempted to buy him out, but he steadfastly refused. This refusal led to consequences predictable to anyone who's seen your standard mob movie via a series of increasingly violent episodes, which resulted in Brady leaving town in 1946. Through the 1950s, the club was reopened as the Latin Quarter until a string of fatal shootings in 1977 led to its closure. In 1978, Bobby Mackey would purchase the infamous old property and would transform it into the music hall and tavern that we know and love today. In present times, and in spite of Bobby being a skeptic himself, the establishment does offer ghost tours to any with an interest. Some claim phenomena on site are a direct result of the old well in the basement, which, as legend has it, is actually a portal to the underworld. And on an adjacent stairwell, many have described hearing phantom bootsteps and claw scratching ascending and descending at all hours, day and night. One famous tale surrounding Bobby Mackey's comes from regular J.R. Costigan, who recounts when he was supernaturally assaulted in the men's room, an attack that was so severe in nature that it warranted a lawsuit for negligence for allowing the public into a building that was that dangerously haunted. Ultimately, the case was dropped, but on legal advice, Bobby hung up a sign that remains to this day, warning guests that the establishment isn't liable for anything resulting from the ghosts. Another famous tale tells of when Bobby hired a young man by the name of Carl Lawson as a caretaker. Carl moved into the upstairs apartment and shortly afterwards began reporting some downright terrifying activity. At the height of these reports, Carl claimed to be demonically possessed. An officially sanctioned exorcism was held for Carl in 1993, but sadly is said to have failed, resulting in Carl leaving his job and eventually passing away in 2012. Before her death in 2009, Janie, Bobby's wife, is said to have had her own list of stories about the property. It's said she would often tell that one night she was grabbed around the waist by an invisible force, picked up off the ground, and thrown down the stairs. After this encounter, she actually refused to enter the club on her own. Also reported across the premises are lights turning on and off by themselves, doors opening and closing on their own, and objects sighted floating in midair. The jukebox has been known to play when no one is around it, even while unplugged, and over 40 varying full-bodied apparitions, most clad in old-fashioned attire, have been described. Another popular story tells of the spirit of former dancer Joanna, who it's said was the daughter of a wealthy mob boss. As this tragedy goes, when she fell in love and her father didn't approve, he had her new boyfriend whacked, resulting in Joanna's death by suicide via poison in the dressing room. To further this sad legend, it's said caretaker Carl was the first to make contact with Joanna's spirit after discovering her journal on site, and that he'd even claimed to have held several long conversations with her. Joanna has been sighted roaming about to this day and is often accompanied by the smell of old-fashioned perfume. Reported throughout this age-old structure are shadowy figures that slink about, the unnerving sensation of being touched by unseen hands, and a dark, malevolent presence that's been known to manifest behind the bar. Lastly, the spirit of a headless woman, assumed to be that of Pearl Bryan, has been known to manifest suddenly, arms outstretched, many suspect forever searching for her missing appendage. Taking into consideration its ridiculously fascinating history, terrifying list of infestations, and range of associated urban legends and ghost stories, we felt Bobby Mackey's was the perfect location to close out our list of picks for some of the most haunted American portals to hell. Thanks for tuning in to our list of picks for some of the most haunted American portals to hell. If you enjoyed hearing our histories and ghost stories as much as we enjoyed telling them to you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn notifications on so you know when fresh content is en route. Throw us a like if you feel we've earned it, and most importantly, share this video and our channel with anyone you think deserves a good scare. We'll catch you all next time.